Chris Martin, and a Quaker, member of the Footsteps Steering Group. So Quakers see the climate crisis as also a crisis in equality, and as Jill was explaining earlier, a crisis in our relationship with nature and biodiversity. Consequently, when Birmingham City Council declared a climate emergency in June 2019, we were very pleased that it included a just transition as an integral part of the declaration. Partnerships and working together are themes running through all of Birmingham's efforts to become a net zero carbon by 2030, and is also a theme within our gathering this afternoon, ways in which we can work together and achieve more. There was also pressure from young people and the campaign groups, as well as from the faith community support, that led to the climate emergency being debated in full council last year. Councillors thanked the young people who are in the gallery for bringing it up as an issue, and said that without their campaigning, we would not be debating a climate emergency motion at that time. It was good that the motion had the support of all the councillors and was proposed by the leader of the minority group on the council and was passed unanimously. The councillors called for a green revolution, decarbonisation of the economy, all as part of a just transition that also delivered justice and jobs. To implement this, the first stage was the City Council has set up a task force and to develop and bring back to the full council a clear, realistic action plan for the transition to net zero carbon. And again, the task force is a partnership approach with representation from council officers, councillors themselves, a local MP, local universities, trade unions, as well as the campaign groups, young people, and with Footsteps representing faith communities. Footsteps engagement has been in particular with the just transition aspects of the work, and also working on engaging with communities on the climate emergency through places of worship. So the just transition will include radical changes in the way in which we live and do things. It's going to involve massive amounts of finance to insulate houses, improve public transport, move away from petrol and diesel vehicles, and generate electricity from sources. So there is no underestimating the magnitude of the challenge. And another aspect of the just transition is the way that all communities should benefit from the changes, and nobody should be left behind. So it involves lifting people out of deprivation and enabling everybody to benefit from the changes involved. So this very much corresponds with Footsteps' faith position, that the climate emergency is about how we live as communities and with other people, as much as about an economic and a sort of technological things. So these are all massive challenges for the city, which can only be addressed by both the different city and regional stakeholders working closely together. So I think also Footsteps itself works closely with other campaign groups, especially Climate Action Network, and as well as with individual faith communities and the Faith Leaders Group. So we've already heard from Rabbi Margaret Jacobi from the Faith Leaders Group, and I'm very pleased that in a minute you'll be hearing from Footsteps friends at Sustrans and then Climate Action Network.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, I'm here from Sustrans. We're a national cycling and walking charity, so we encourage people to cycle and walk everywhere they go. We are working with Birmingham City Council on the Brum Reeds initiative. So we are looking at one aspect of that, clean air champions. But a little bit about Sustrans first. So we do lots of projects across the country. We're a national charity. We have an office here in Birmingham, and we do lots of different things, such as a school campaign, so getting children to scoot, walk or cycle to school. We also work with workplaces, again encouraging people to use active travel to get to work. We also look at infrastructure, so we look at making the spaces that we cycle and walk in better and have more infrastructure and more accessibility for doing those things. And all of this leads to us encouraging people to use their cars a little less, really. And all of this again feeds into that air quality agenda. So less cars on the road improves the air quality, but it also feeds into the climate change agenda, that, you know, better air quality also improves the climate change, or the reduces climate change. So the project that we're working on with the City Council is recruiting clean air champions. So we're looking for people from community, voluntary and faith sector groups to do a little training with us to learn a bit about what air pollution is. So learn about where it comes from, whether that's motorised transport or from fires or from construction industry. So there's lots of different places that it comes from. It's not just vehicles, but vehicles are the big one. But also to look at the different types of pollution. So it's not just one thing, it's made up of lots of different things. And then to look at how it impacts your health, so how it impacts your breathing or your heart, and other aspects of how healthy you are. So we do a little bit of that training, and then we look at ways that we can share this message. So we are encouraging or recruiting these champions to go back and speak to their communities about what air pollution is and where it comes from and how it affects us. Because we think that by learning a bit about it and understanding the problem, we're more likely to be able to understand how and why we should be making a change. Looking at ways that we move around and things that we do that could have a poor impact on air quality, and so changing those to have a positive impact. So we are working with Footsteps on this, especially with the faith organisations and places of worship. We're looking primarily at those within the inner ring road, because that will have an impact with the clean air zone, but we're not restricted to that. So we're looking at anyone that's willing to come and have a bit of training and learn a bit more about the problem and be able to share it with their communities. Again, we think that by working with people from communities and asking them to go out and share that message, it's an easier way for people to learn, and you've got that sort of connection with somebody. So by sharing it with your own communities, you know how to talk to your communities, and you know how they best respond and how they understand. So that's how we're working on this project. And if you want some more information, please do get in touch with us at Sustrans. And we also want to capitalise a little bit on some of the positive things that have come out from the lockdown. So we know that movement at the moment is quite restricted, and people are only allowed out sort of once a day for exercise, and people aren't travelling to work as much, or as school either. So that's had a really positive impact on air pollution in our city and in cities across the country. So we want to look at some of those and see how we can continue some of the things that we're doing now, post lockdown, and continue to improve the air quality. So try and take a little bit of positive out of what's going on at the moment, and out of the ways that we've changed the things that we do. Thanks to Footsteps for giving us this opportunity to share that project with you, and we hope that you are interested and would like to get in touch and be part of it with us.
So I'm here to talk a little bit about my involvement with Climate Action Network West Midlands. It exists as a network of networks. We kind of started in Birmingham in 2014, as we realised when there's a call out for action, there's lots of wonderful work going on the city and lots of organisations are very active, but sometimes those organisations, communication between us isn't very clear. So hence the network was born. It was in a very short time, we became a West Midlands based network, thinking about how we frame the issues and kind of prioritising which issues are important and how we talk about them. We created a climate charter. The climate charter, there's key points there, so we frame those around housing, energy and resources, transport, food, employment and education. This year, I suppose our main energy and campaigning is around, one is getting people to switch. It's something that we can all do. Well, on a personal level, whether you're a community organisation or charity, whether you're a business, switch energy suppliers. And so that's, we continually banging on about that and prioritise that in our campaigns. The other thing that we're actively involved with Birmingham City Council's declaring a climate emergency last year and being part of the task force for that. I think one of our key messages there from the network is promoting free, fair public transport. That's going to have a massive impact on our communities in terms of, we know that we've got to reduce our carbon footprint. We know a key way to do that is to reduce cars on the road. So all the other initiatives that are going on in terms of cycling, etc., they're amazing, but we really do need to reduce our reliance on the car. So we are pushing for local authorities, particularly in the West Midlands, to seriously look at to adopting free, fair public transport for all. The other key thing that I'm particularly interested in, has been instrumental in helping pull that together within the network, is making sure that young people have an opportunity to be engaged and informed around the issues. That conversation started again late last year, when we started working with some of the youth climate strikers in Birmingham. And it was very clear from that, not all young people will be able to go on a strike on a Friday afternoon, but there's lots of young people in our city and across the country who want to understand what the issues are and want to play a part. So out of those conversations, we've developed a climate champions training kit. We ran a pilot earlier this year in January that Sanaa, who you'll hear from, she was part of that, and that's still ongoing, and we've got another pilot later on this year. What's going to come out of that, we're going to pull all those resources together, create a resource kit that will be freely available and downloadable from our website. So whether you're working in schools, community groups, whether you're a family, you're a group of friends, it's about giving young people the skills to explore the issues and to kind of discover and find out how they can raise awareness and take action.
My name is Sanaa Pasha. I'm 15 years old, and I got involved through climate activism with my group Birmingham Youth Strike for Climate. We strike off school once a month to demand climate action. I went to a climate champion training workshop hosted by Climate Action Network West Midlands, and the training was brilliant because it opened my eyes to a range of young people, like whether it's different ages and backgrounds, which I perhaps didn't see in other climate groups I've been in. There were people of a younger age group, and also it opened my eyes to what inspired individual people to become climate champions. For me, it was climate politics, whereas for other people, it might have been the more simplistic things to start off with, like nature, or even an interest in animals, and from there it's developed into trying to protect the natural world. It also allowed us to explore the different ways we can communicate our message. For me personally, the main way I was used to was the school strikes, but not only were peaceful protests an option, but also fundraising and community events. And I've taken that forward into other branches of climate activism that I'm doing. So for example, in my school, I run a student climate network, and I've taken the idea of fundraising and hosting a community event which will appeal to the youth. And I hosted a talent show in which we raised £900 for the Australian bushfire crisis. I've also hosted film nights and clothes swaps and other fun events which appeal to young people and allow them to get interested into climate activism through something which they find interesting, something which appeals to them. We're also drawing up a climate contract, which all the schools in the King Edward's Foundation are looking to perhaps commit to. And then I'm also taking my training, what I learned in the Climate Action Network West Midlands, into Birmingham Youth Strike for Climate. So we predominantly do school strikes, but we've also recently been working with Birmingham City Council as part of their climate task force, looking at how we can achieve the future carbon emission targets in the future. And we're also trying to appeal to young people, like I said, in other events which aren't necessarily school strikes, which not all people feel are comfortable attending. So for example, with the current health concerns, we're doing a digital strike, which allows people to join in from all across the globe, whether they can leave their houses or not. And we're also hosting a variety of gigs and fundraising events which young people are more likely to want to attend, as it is something which appeals to them.